have good presenters from various fields. They've all joined, so I'm very happy. And I want just to inform you that we are joined by the chairperson of the Regional Steering Committee for ASE2 project, Professor Gulam. I've also noticed that Professor Mike Kuria, the Deputy Executive Secretary for Interuniversity Council for East Africa, is also joined. So it's going to be a very good conversation, and I welcome them all to this very important session. So to start our session, I would like to invite Saori to make opening remarks, introductory remarks, and then the program will roll on. Saori, if you hear me and if you're ready, please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jonathan, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, for the guest speakers as well. So today we will start the session on the strengthening cooperation between the African Centers of Excellence and the business sector. And then for this session, we wanted to see what kind of a private sector partnership models exist, and then how those are developed. And then we also wanted to hear from the private sector side, like what are the benefits for them to partner with the universities. And also we wanted to have some breakout session to see in each field. We selected the agriculture, water, and health field, but in each field we wanted to see how the Center of Excellence in different countries have been formed. This time it became European countries, but you can hear from them on different aspects of how they successfully developed the partnership, and then what were the challenges. So I hope you can learn from their experience, and also selected the ACE will present their experience as well. So you can hear the challenges and then see how you can get these lessons to develop your own private sector cooperation strategy in the future. And then after that, we would like to convene again to share what you learned in each breakout session, so that you can learn from each other on the session. And then thank you so much again for all the external speakers who agreed to join us. And then we really look forward to hearing your experience. Thank you very much. And then now, back to Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Saori, for a very good introductory remarks. Now we want to go straight to the first presenter. This is Danica Ramljak, and before she make her presentation, I would like to talk a little bit about her, so that those who don't know her should be able to associate her with what she's going to discuss today. Danica is a senior science and innovation expert at the World Bank, providing expertise in science, innovation, and commercialization of knowledge in institutions of higher education and research. Since 2012, she has worked on the World Bank funded projects in Croatia, Western Balkan countries, Georgia, Uzbekistan, Slovakia, Peru, and sub-Saharan African countries. Over a career spanning more than 3 decades, she has served on faculty at the School of Veterinary Medicine, University of Zagreb, as a visiting scientist at the Russell Research Center in Athens, GA, and a senior researcher at the Croatian Veterinary Institute in Zagreb. From 1993 to 1999, she conducted research at the US National Institute of Health, National Cancer Institute, USA, as a postdoctoral fellow, after which she served as a researcher and a faculty member at Georgetown University, Lombardy Cancer Center until 2004. She held the post of the Director General of the Croatian Life Science Institute between 2009 to 2012. She also worked as a senior management advisor to Croatian Minister of Science and Education on the World Bank funded second science and technology project, which took place between 2015 and 2017. And she also worked as a member of the Croatian government coordinating team for preparation of the Smart Specialization Strategy of 2015. Since 2019, she has served as the External Advisory Board member for EU Connections University Network, and since January 2020 as an EAB member for the European University of Seas Network. During her career, she has published scientific articles, book chapters, and expert policy papers, and more than 200 times she was invited to attend as a speaker in scientific conferences, seminars, workshops, and roundtables. Danica received her Doctor of Vet Medicine in 1982, Masters of Science in 1984, and a PhD degree in 1992 at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Zagreb. Danica, before you is a meeting of scientists and distinguished scholars from 16 universities in the East and Southern Africa. As you're aware, the project is trying to also build the collaboration with private sector. We've had our experiences, but we also expect to get a lot of experiences from you. So I want to ask you to make your presentation, and the audience is actually waiting for you to share whatever you are having today. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for introductory remarks. I would need the help with presentation sharing, and then if you can allow me, then I can switch to control my slides from my side, if that's possible, Agnes.
Danica, do you think you can also try uploading from your side? You cannot. You cannot.
Yeah, I tried,
okay.
And I have trouble, so I better don't. But
maybe Agnes will enable her to share her screen.
You can just share it, and if you cannot switch that I can control it, that's fine.
I'm inquiring if Moshe is online.
Sorry?
Yeah, but I don't have the presentations.
Okay, let me try to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you mind to put it in a slide mode, please? Okay, so can I start?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, Saudi, if you would like to go in the view options at the top and allow me to control from my side. Could you do that? Saudi?
Yeah.
Maybe in the interest of time, just let Sauri move it for you, Danica.
Yeah,
just
I think I'll
okay.
just do it. I can do it. Yeah.
So if you could go back to the first slide so I can just go over my title. So my topic today, and I do apologize for this, I have difficulty sharing screen. The topic is cooperation of universities with industry, and I'll touch upon important benefits and common challenges. Next slide, please. So after introduction, I will focus on why should universities and industry cooperate with each other and what are benefits for both. Then we'll touch upon obstacles for success for this cooperation, factors for success. I'll share with you some models of cooperation and collaboration between the two, and I'll touch upon financial support instruments that are pretty common around the globe for the cooperation between the two. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. One thing that caught my attention prior to this presentation was the fact that obviously in African countries, an African Association of African Universities is putting cooperation with the private sector at the top of its agenda. And this meeting that you see here happened like a month ago, And essentially, the goal was to strengthen the relationship between African universities and the private sector. And this is not new, this is ongoing effort, but I just wanted you to know that as we speak, almost, this is on the top agenda of the policymakers in Africa. Next slide, please. Similarly to that, European Commission, as tomorrow, as you see, December the 9th, is going to have a high-level meeting in Brussels for the 4th European Education Summit, and the next decade of European education will be determined. And this is an important event, and obviously collaboration with the private sector is at the top agenda. The reason I'm bringing the European Commission is we happen to have our guests here today, mostly from European countries. Next slide, please. So the European Commission has two important initiatives that African universities could benefit from learning what's going on in European countries, and obviously through this meeting today, when our European colleagues are going to share the experiences with their centers of excellence and how they collaborate with the private sector. But I want you to focus on two things. There are two major initiatives happening in Europe right now. Universities are joining and centers of excellence in so-called networks of European universities. And then also there is a second initiative, which is through the European Institute for Technology and Innovation, that is essentially launching to boost programs to boost innovation and cooperation with the private sector. Why I'm bringing this up is that not only to share the European initiatives, but also to caught your attention with one important fact, and that is that European Commission put African countries at the top of its agenda. A lot of programs will be coming out where African centers of excellence can gain from collaboration with the European institutions. Next slide, please. Let's now talk about why should universities and industry cooperate. Next slide, please. Okay, the opportunities are clear, but I'll just bring them once again to your attention. First of all, cooperation will help bringing research ideas into market. Also, access to insight, expertise, horizon scanning. Access to infrastructure in both ways. You can have infrastructure from universities being used by the private sector and vice versa. Common usage of facilities and important data sharing. Then developing and transferring talent and appropriate skills development. Quite often universities throughout the world are not putting out graduates with the right skills. So if you have collaboration with the private sector, obviously this problem, will be helped. Then research excellence is extremely important part, because you cannot have a high quality education without good research. And of course, centers of excellence are beacons throughout, the world of this research excellence. And of course, impact, when you collaborate with the private sector, you have, obviously impact on the society, on, so many joint things that can happen, and reputation of the center or reputation of the university is much, much better. Also, opportunities through the joint collaborations are supporting institutional, regional, and national development, both in Africa or in Europe or elsewhere in the world. So we are not opening up anything that is not happening in any piece of the globe right now. Contribution to the government and public support for research institutions. So if your public in the respective country knows that your particular center or university as a whole is collaborating with the private sector, this is essentially very important to gain public support. And of course, it is last but not the least, is access to funding. Sometimes you have a funding mechanisms just allocated to support this collaboration, or for example, there are funding mechanisms where universities can lead and public sector can partner and vice versa. Next slide, please. However, there are some obstacles to this collaboration and challenges. Let me talk about some of these. First of all, challenge is always to raise awareness of added value, particularly, at university setting. Some of the research institutes and universities do not have a culture that would essentially recognize the importance of this collaboration. So it is important to raise awareness. Then, obviously, managing expectations of all stakeholders and finding common ground sometimes is a challenge. Dealing with administrative procedures and negotiating agreements. Quite often you will hear universities are slow in negotiating, the administrative procedures are complex, and private sector doesn't have time. They are under time pressure to develop their services, products, and etc. And negotiating with the private sector and vice versa could be a challenge. Developing comprehensive collaborative research strategies at the institutional level is also important. And I think it's quite important to stress that finding the right people. Sometimes one person could have a difficult personality and would be creating a trouble for, to essentially establish this partnership. And this could be something that one needs to be aware in advance, that it does take flexibility on both sides. And dealing with intellectual property rights is a huge issue. Obviously, for the private sector, this is a big thing, but so should be for universities and the centers of excellence. IP and generating your intellectual property is one important indicator for your success. And in the end, like in any partnership, building trust is extremely essential and very important. Next slide, please. Let me talk about obstacles in some details from the university sides. For example, university, your center could be absolutely posed to start collaborating with the private sector, but there are issues that you can run into it if your university leadership does not have a vision that this is important. Let me kind of pause here for a second. I think it's important for the academic research in university setting that leadership does recognize that this is an important aspect. And if the people, if the universities do not have policies that do recognize importance of collaboration with the private sector and collaboration of the centers of excellence or any other part of university, that could be a problem. Because you have career development, and I visited some universities, and I'm sure the situation is improving, but for example, career development of researchers must recognize this importance. Finding the right partner, not, you would like to collaborate from the center's point of view, but maybe it's not easy to find the right partner. Let me give you a piece of advice here. It is very logical that you find your partners in your vicinity. However, put global glasses as well. You should not be prevented with your great technology and your great effort to seek for people elsewhere. And this is, I think, very important. And Sauri has a project that she's trying to put African centers of excellence with, for example, Japanese companies, which I think it's extremely important, to put these global glasses. Then one needs to be always aware of the potential conflict of interest and the threat to reputation. These are things that, obviously due to time, I'm going to go very quickly over. Then, as I mentioned already, there are some regulatory barriers or IP issues. If university does not have a policy that regulates very nicely, or technology transfer office that will help you to deal with the private sector when it comes to your intellectual property, this could be an issue. Well, lack of incentives, no funding, for example. You would like to collaborate, but no funding is available. So luckily, through the World Bank project, your center is supported to collaborate and to open up. And, this is what, and not only through the World Bank, but I'm sure there are national funding sources and other international sources that you could seek to have this. And the private sector itself is going to fund your research if they find it of interest. Incompatible expectations. When you negotiate your collaboration with the private sector, this is very important to find out what are your common grounds and what do you expect as a center of excellence at university versus them. Motivation is very important. What is the motivation of somebody to collaborate with you? And it is clearly important to have a right communication. Poor communication can lead to problems. Inadequate support and inability to deliver. Sometimes, for example, universities would like to collaborate, but then they say, well, am I going to be able to deliver? And this is an important issue because there is a time frame that private sector wants essentially to go to the market or to commercialize something. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Let's talk about factors to success. Next slide. Okay, here I'm going to focus on individual level, on university level, on private sector and the government. So as individual, let's say for sake of the topic today, you are a center leader and you are providing center of excellence leadership. You need to commit to deliver success for all involved. Make it win-win. So everybody in the center should understand that it's not you as a XYZ person leading the center, but everybody should be striving to make this collaboration happening. Of course, you are challenged to communicate effectively around expectations, milestones, contributions, and measures of success. It's very important. What are your indicators and how you consider your center is going to do this? Of course, in the same time, center works within the university, so you need to comply with the policies, and the policy requirements of the universities are very important. However, some universities might not have the right policies, or maybe they have inadequate policies or policies that they need improvement. In that case, center leaders could lobby with the university leadership to have the right policy which will lift obstacles and to have better success in collaboration with the private sector. And of course, time is very essential because it does take time, like in any relationship, from the friendship up to business relationship, it takes time to build trust and to build a relationship. Next slide, please. Let's talk about universities. University should have a culture that values and rewards university industry collaboration and that it provides institutional support for technology transfer. Unless this is happening, it will be very difficult for centers to succeed. So this is why entire institutional ecosystem is so important. Universities should develop and promote entrepreneurial culture, establish permanent training for both students and faculty. You'll see later on, I'll give you some examples how this happens. Build relationship at all levels and with partners of all scales, recognizing differences. Why I'm bringing this up? As much as centers, I'm sure, at universities in Africa will be leaders of this, but others should join in the institutional ecosystem as well. And to be honest with you, you are mostly working in STEM areas and, engineering, health, agriculture, but even people in social sciences can be, in business, they could also be contributing and helping you in the ecosystem at the university level to boost your efforts. Obviously, universities should provide strong support, facilities and policies, and prioritize success in implementation. And I believe it's very important to have showcase success and learn from failures. Failure is okay because from whatever failure you have, you could get your lessons. Next slide, please. Let me focus on industry. Industry people need to develop appropriate strategy to collaborate with the higher education and institutions and with your center. However, for them to collaborate, they need to have clear business case, unless they're not gonna collaborate for the sake of it. One thing which I think, from the point of view of industry, they can very much impact on universities' management. Sometimes universities throughout the world do not have a top management or a top governance, and private sector is more experienced in this. Collaboration between the two can impact in a positive sense on university management. Industry could be driven by the fact that they could actually share research infrastructure they have, or they could actually seek your research infrastructure in the centers. They could also have in mind applications for joint grants or more funding opportunities, which one side can open for another. However, when you negotiate with the private sector, we know for a fact, and the World Bank has established and published, and others did the same, that innovative companies are much more productive. They have much better productivity. So it is very important that university and the Center of Excellence at the university is bringing extremely important contribution to the innovation potential of particular company. And I think this holds true mostly, I would say it's for everybody, but for SME sector. Smaller companies with the less funding, less human capital, they can gain much more even than larger companies doing R&D. Obviously, joint IP, this is very important, and commercialization of the IP should be striving essentially one important factor for industry. Talent attraction. Industry would like to hire people with the right talent and with the right skills. So you could establish collaboration where essentially students are going over to the private sector. They can spend some time learning their subjects within the private sector setting, and vice versa. You know, you could invite speakers from the private sector to teach in your curriculum and your education programs. And of course, for industry, collaboration with the Center of Excellence or university is enhancing their corporate brand. And maybe they can even come faster to market. This is why it's important that you are on the same timeline. Next slide, please. So funding agencies and government, they have a role to play. They need to establish a variety of proactive funding instruments at all scales so that this collaboration is supported. Then they need also to ensure that at the national level, appropriate policy and environment, and they need to understand what is the impact for society. And they need to report to the public why this is so important that universities collaborate with the private sector. Then embed in industrial development policy and higher education policy. So all the policies that are dealing with the science and education should really have this embedded that is important to collaborate with the private sector. And of course, the policymakers should promote constructive dialogue on opportunities and barriers to success. Next slide, please. Now we will actually, on this slide, I will go very quickly over it, but just I wanted to show you how to measure success of university business cooperation. And you could see that inputs are, you know, something that I already mentioned: access to resources, motivated researchers, high quality researchers. In process, there is a relevant research happening, high quality research, training and learning opportunities, which are much better when to collaborate. But outputs are new technologies, new scientific knowledge, skilled and trained staff. But then the impact could be measures. How many new ideas came out from this? Solution concepts, innovations, human capital. So my advice would be for your own center, when you develop your sustainability strategy and when you think ahead, think about this. What could be your measures, your internal measures that you would say, okay, we have a very good success collaborating with the business sector. Next slide, please. Let's talk about models of collaboration. There are different models. You could collaborate in R&D, let's say research projects, or private sector could order contract research from your center of excellence. You can have mobility of researchers between the two. Then you can have a mobility of students. You can have a joint curriculum development and delivery. As we said, you know, private sector could be invited to teach at your universities and centers. One important aspect is a lifelong learning. You know, centers can provide training for industry staff, and the lifelong learning and continuous education could be a focus. Sharing infrastructure, we mentioned that, through equipment, through incubators, through accelerators, whatever you choose. And important thing is at universities, where I see centers as leaders in this, to create entrepreneurial culture. And you could have expert analysis for the private sector, scientific advice to firms, and of course, governance, as I said a few minutes ago. Let's actually see some of these models that, and I'm sure later on during the webinar, you'll hear more from the speakers who will talk about their particular experiences, but let me go on the next slide, please. One thing I wanted to share this slide because when I was reading different background material in preparation for this talk, I was, of course, not surprised, but I wanted to share. One wonders, like being in the center, who is going to take a lead when it comes to negotiating collaboration with the private sector? All the research so far says it's you. It's a faculty and staff researchers. You are the ones that you should initiate. You are the one who will come up and say, this is what we have in our center. Why don't you see and listen? So maybe we could collaborate. Your technology transfer office is second in line. They will be your support, but don't expect them to go out and look for your job. Then legal department, rector, and everybody else. It is you who drives the process. Next slide, please. Okay, there are so many excellent examples I could pick up to share with you, and I'm glad that here you will, be hearing from experts and exchanging your experiences from both Europe and Africa in this case. But I was recently impressed very much what University of Madrid does, and what they have. You'll see in a minute. They came up with a program which they call entrepreneurship program for students, which is essentially tailored to boost their bachelor students, master students, and PhD students to start to become entrepreneurial, to learn and to get right skills, and to open up collaboration with the private sector. Next slide, please. So this is what happens. They have a 5-minute pitch. Takes 5 minutes for researcher from University of Madrid, student or at any level, to actually sit down with the private sector and in 5 minutes tell them what they are doing. So this is how the University of Madrid strengthened the relationship with university and industry. And so far, when you look at their indicators, they had 35 events, number of presentation 320, number of attendees more than 2,000, research industry meetings 800, and formal agreements more than 65. So next slide, we will see what they have accomplished in a very short period of time. University of Madrid, this is their, if you focus on the left, their facilities that are especially designed to support entrepreneurial and R&D with the private sector. 91 companies are currently developing their projects with advice of the University of Madrid. And 300 companies since its creation of this program. I did not want to pick up US as example because in US these numbers are even tremendously bigger. If you take any of the US top ranking universities, these numbers will be even more important. Europe is lagging behind US, but see, even in Europe, things are going on in the right direction. But what is impressive about this is 5 minutes talk. Next slide. I'll give you one example of my own university here in Croatia, University of Zagreb, which is, let's say, ranked more or less within the 5 up to 600 best in the world based on Shanghai list. But what's impressive about the fact, although there is a huge room for improvement, centers of excellence there, particularly in biotechnology and biomedicine, where the university is very strong, and there are centers of excellence in that area. A while ago, they developed, together with Pliva Zagreb, one of the best antibiotics in the world, which is called Sumamed. Now, Pfizer has licensed this product and is selling all over. And it's considered as one of the best antibiotics. So, reason why I'm bringing this up, Croatia is really catching up, and it has relevance to African countries because we had some troubles and problems and stuff like that, and a lot of these things that we would like to have, like more patenting, more collaboration, are still in catching up phase. So Madrid obviously and Spain is much more developed, but it is important to see that even small countries with even limited resources, you could do great things. Next slide, please. One guy that I would like to use here again happened to be from Zagreb. Mate Rimac is a person who is actually making global news these days. Why I'm bringing this up? Not because he happens to be Croatian, but because for the fact that this is a 33 years old guy, next slide please, who just made recently CNN news. Why? Because this person actually came up with, one of the best, if not the best, electrical cars in his business. But why I thought this is important to mention Mate Rimac? Because he started very young, at age of 17. He approached Croatian universities because he did not have any money, no penny, to start his business. And he, for 10 to 15 years, actually, essentially had a vision to work with universities, to use the resources at universities, to collaborate. And later on, now that he made the big splash and he's a world known, he's continuing to collaborate with universities, with centers of excellence. He's supporting education programs in the entrepreneurship. So I just wanted you to know that it is very, very important that universities could make big impact on whatever happens in the private sector. And I will finish with a couple slides. Here is me at University of Nairobi with my colleagues visiting University of Nairobi, and through African countries when I visited, obviously entrepreneurial culture is there. So you just need to fine-tune some things, but here is a maker's space at University of Nairobi where the private sector and University of Nairobi are collaborating. Next slide, please. European institutions like Aalto universities are visiting Nairobi and University of Nairobi, and their students here are solving problems and trying to cooperate with the private sector on very important issues for Kenya. So that, there are examples after examples that one could show, but of course, we are running out of time, so I'll just close here. Last slide I would like to show you is financial support instruments, and this will be very quick. In order to collaborate with the private sector, you need to have appropriate instruments. But obviously, your research can go from fundamental research, then applied, product development, and commercialization. And, due to time, I'm just going to go quickly over, but private sector, most of the countries do have collaboration essentially as early as very early in applied prototyping phase with the applied research. So universities and the centers could even establish seed grant, which is very small, even if you lack your national funding to start this collaboration. With all of that in mind, I would like to thank you for attention, and I'm sure I don't know if I was running a little bit over time, but I hope not. And I'm open up for your questions at some point. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Danica. This was very, very useful, and I think we will come and get some reaction from the audience. We go straight to the next presenter. This is Yoreni Davisa, who is the area sales manager and responsible for the African region and France for the Water Solution Division. Yoreni has a background of mechanical engineering, business administration, and water treatment. He has over 25 years of experience in the water treatment sector. In these years, he has worked on all kinds of water treatment systems in a wide range of different positions, from a project manager to business unit manager. Colbris Cleantech is an engineering company with its own production facilities. The company delivers wastewater, waste recycling, and bioresource solutions. In over 35 years of its existence, the company has supplied in excess of 2,500 wastewater treatment systems in 75 countries. So Yoreni is going to present and give a private sector perspective on cooperation with the Center of Excellence, and his presentation is going to look at the key element for an enterprise to establish cooperation with the Center of Excellence. So Yoreni, if you're there, please go ahead and make your presentation.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, let me upload the presentation. If I can have the screen. Can I have the screen? I cannot upload the presentation from here.
Yeah, or Moshri or Agnes, can you help, please?
Can you do it, or are you having problem? I think if you put your presentation by doing the share screen, you should be able to do that. But
I have no share screen at the moment. I cannot share my screen.
are you? Agnes, I hope everyone has the share screen right.
I think they are not allowed to share screen. Can you disable that restriction?
He has the rights. Everybody has the rights, but it's just one person at a time. So
You see?
If you cannot do it, I can also do it again. But should I do it?
I have the share screen. I'm trying to upload it. No, it's not working.
perhaps
Okay.
somebody could help.
Or you send your presentation to Agnes.
I already have it, so but Saori can share if it's okay with him.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's shared by Moshri.
Okay.
And I
Thank you, Moshe.
Sure.
So just, yeah, go ahead with your presentation now.
So you have the access now to move the
Okay.
slides.
Let me just see yes, because of the time, I will keep it quite short. I'll just run to the system. Okay, as explained before, we are a company who is working for over 30 years in the environmental business. We deliver a lot of what solutions? Okay, something came in between. No, we make a lot of water solutions. We have over takes some time. Yes, we have 3 branches. We have a water solutions branch, and then we use it for a lot of wastewater treatment systems, and reusing and purifying water, and also to recover energy from wastewater, like biogas installations. We have recycling solutions that we have the waste flows, and they can be separated to reuse and upgrade again to usable materials. For bioresource solutions, that's quite a new branch. We use vegetable waste like coleslaw and carrots and onions. When they process that for McDonald's or things like that, they have a lot of waste in which we can, with a new patented process, we take out the proteins, the fibers, and a sort of syrup with the taste in it. That can be sold again to like the vegan industry. So that's we have developed that for over 10 years, and now we are building. We have built a test factory, and also building some new factories for that. And it's also quite interesting. Here do you see our Columbus factory effects. It's privately owned by one family. We have about 100 people with a flexible shell. We have our own engineering and also the own production facility. And we have over 2,500 references in 75 countries. Since 2 years, we have Columbus Academy, where we work together with the universities to do some internships and other things. Okay, see, we do all kinds of things like also we have our own welding facility, warehouse spares, and after sales support and installation and commissioning crew. You see our end users, that's all kinds of industries like meat, poultry, dairy, beverages, vegetables, fish, and other things, and non-food also like petrochemical, paper, textile, and pharmaceutical companies. Also, we deliver industrial municipality systems. Columbus is formed out of 5 companies. In the past, it was Radox Waste Recycling, Engineers Bureau Schneider, Radox Water Technology, and CAPEC Water Technology, and also UCY, which covers waste from biogases from waste. And now with this, since last year, it's all Columbus Cleantech, so it's one brand. Okay, let's focus on the water solutions. This is what we can produce for water solutions. In the house, we produce our own screens, sedimentation units, oil water separator, and DOF units. And we also deliver the biological treatment, aerobic, anaerobic, and sewage treatment. And nowadays, there's a lot of, especially from Africa, there's also a lot of interest in reuse and polishing treatment. And that's also what we can deliver. You see some examples from the things we produce ourselves. So I'll run it through it quite quickly. You see the flotation units we deliver also, and some projects we have delivered in the past. Here you see some small examples. So this is a simple physical chemical process. I think I'm sure that you all know that. This is an example of our FBR system. And that's where we use a DOF unit instead of a settler after the biological treatment. So it's much more compact. And also the effluent water is the much lower COD levels and things like this. It's in between simple biological treatment and MBR system. So for a lot of clients who think an MBR system is too expensive, we can offer an FBR system which has almost the same effluent quality. Here you see the example with a polishing step afterwards. There's one simple polishing step with only some scent filters and chlorination. You see some examples, pictures of the biological treatment. See that we have the big tanks with bottom aeration and top aeration, and also we call it the Biocon system. It's a containerized system for small communities. And on the right side, you see the anaerobic treatment systems. Here you see a sample of a water reuse system. It's a project we have in Germany. And they have 1,000 cubes a day. And we use a scent filter, multimedia filter, and RO system. So, and this factory is limited in water intake from tap and well. They have a tap and well, but due to regulations, they're not allowed to take in more water, so they will reuse their own water. And it also reduces the discharge fees. That's a small example of what we do normally. What we're expecting from the centers of excellence as a private sector, we have a lot of clients who need more and higher educated people who can operate and control and have a lot of process knowledge about the increasing more demanding system because of all the infectious diseases, what is now a hot topic. You need at least ultrafiltration, and that's also quite delicate process, and the membranes are very expensive, so they need to be operated very delicate, otherwise it will destroy the membranes, and that's quite expensive to replace them. We have also some projects in the medicine industry where we have to remove for instance, the paracetamol from the effluent water from the factories, and that's also an increasing problem to the environment. So that's also quite a hot topic. Also, microplastics and nanoplastics are getting a more and more problem, so that's also need to be reduced. Also with municipal water systems. We need also more ICT people because these processes and the equipment are more and more controlled via PLC. We have a system that controls it through internet, but also local, you need qualified operators who can handle and control all the systems. But because of all the more complex systems, with all the membranes and RO and ultrafiltration systems, they're more complex, but also much more expensive as the capex. So that's also a problem, especially in Africa at the moment, because you need a lot of big investment to start with the system. And that's also what we have some regulatory issues, because there are clients who are obligated to have a water treatment system or improved water treatment system. But for instance, we have a fish factory who was working on a water treatment system, but now they have extended the pipe into the sea with some kilometers, and they are allowed to use that for several years more. As said before, we have started recently with the Columbus Academy, and where we have a lot of internships for different kinds of education, from high schools to universities, and technical and ICT, and also process engineering. What we expect also from the centers of excellence is that they can help us solve bottlenecks, because you see a lot of things also at clients that they have having problems to get educated people who operate the systems and have enough knowledge to see what is happening in there. So, and that's also getting more and more complicated for our clients to find that. At the moment, we're also forging partnerships with international organizations, like, for instance, the Dutch government, and also with the African councils to get more capacity buildings for using and exchanging information and knowledge. Because you see, we have a lot of knowledge in the company, and we try to exchange it with the new students and new people. Okay, so this is my short, hopefully short enough presentation. If you have any questions, please be free to ask them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jorin, for very good presentation. You gave a different point of view from private sector. What you're actually saying here is that you need people who are well trained, but you also need people who provide solution to many of the challenges. So the two papers are open for discussion. Just raise up your hand and then let me recognize you. And when you ask a question, just specify which presentation are you looking at. So the paper is open, please, welcome. I started with Professor Mbale. You are the first person to raise your hand. Can you speak to the papers?
Yeah, thanks very much, Jonathan. And I'd like to thank the two reviewers. Are you getting me?
Yes, very well.
Yeah, the first, I want to hear what is the comment from the first presenter, that is Danica, not so?
Yeah.
Yeah, Danica presented starting from challenges to obstacles for success, factors for success, and so forth. And among these, from challenges, obstacles for success, factors for success, one of the areas he touched was on the utilization of IP, which can lead to success in commercialization. And she did identify that the technology office, or the technology office TTO, technology transfer office, is one unity which can make that success to commercialization. However, I think in the sub-Saharan region, you have a problem. The problem is that we might not have the right people to run the technology transfer office. Because to run the technology transfer office, which can drive commercialization, and once commercialization is driven, definitely there will be success in research. So I think the problem we have is to maintain the technology transfer office, the type of the people, the capacity. You need the people with the IP knowledge. You need the people with the finance. You need the people with the IP law. So now we find that for institution to maintain such capacity, maybe it can be a challenge, especially if it's trickled down to the centers. So I don't know what is your say on that one. That's about to Danica. Then let me come to Ziti Joren, the advisor. You have shown us a lot of success, especially like to water treatment. You ended up with the water treatment systems, which is very good. Now, on these outputs, you didn't tell us how many IPs you had. Maybe you can share how many IPs you had on your some of these deliverables or outputs. Thank you.
Okay, so should I go first?
Yes.
I'm glad you actually raised an issue with the technology transfer offices in African universities. When I visited universities in Sub-Saharan Africa, one of the evaluating points was to see the capacity of technology transfer offices. In some of the countries, this is, in its infancy. And obviously, you are absolutely right. There is a capacity building need that should be happening. And one of the things that World Bank is funding one other project where centers, so-called impact centers, are helped through one of the mechanisms in the capacity building of the technology transfer offices. One advice I would give it to you is obviously the university leadership, and maybe at your center's initiative, should establish good relationship with international technology transfer offices, where people will be able to do capacity building. And I'm sure that you have friends around the world who can help in this capacity. But in the same time, obviously, university needs to have appropriate number of people with the right knowledge. But there are some excellent examples. For example, University of Ghana, you should see their technology transfer office. They have very capable people. They're I'm not going to go in details, but of every other universities, but throughout Sub-Saharan Africa, there are differences in the countries and in the universities. Some have a very good technology transfer office, up to 10 people working there, and some have none or one. So this is something that is very important. And these are people who will help you out. So it's an important issue.
Yes.
I think there was
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, if I can answer your question, because you asked me how many IP you asked that will be necessary.
Because with all that outputs or outcomes, which were ended up into very variable systems,
Yes,
I'm sure that you end up acquiring some of the IPs, whether patentee or copyright or industrial design and so forth. How many did you acquire or were granted?
I don't know. We have some patents. I don't know exactly from the top of my head. I know we have several kinds of patents pending, and also there's a lot from the past that are already how do you call it? Not valid anymore. So because some patents are from 20 years ago, so they are now common knowledge instead of patents. No, if you want to know exactly, I have to look it up. Because we have also collaborations with other kinds of companies, and they have also their own patents for a lot of systems. But it's mostly process related. So the system itself is sort of common knowledge, and it's also the combination of all the systems that is patented.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a question from Dr. Judy from Akalise, and that will be followed by Biruk from Abyss, I think, World Bank office. So Judy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Jonathan. I have just two small questions for Danica. The first one regards the intellectual property rights. You know, you find that you have so many partners you are working with. I am wondering how best can you come up with an intellectual property right that accommodates all, given the fact that they contribute differently, various staff contribute differently, the center and the university contribute differently. So from her experience, how best can we come up with the appropriate intellectual property right document? And then the other one is related to commercialization. I think I got lost because of the network. I wanted to hear from her, what are those key steps of the transition from new ideas or innovations to real commercializations? Just a snapshot. How do you move from the new ideas that you have come up with, the innovations, to real commercialization of these ideas and innovations? Thank you.
You're welcome. I will very quickly respond. Each university should have intellectual property policy that is very well defined based on its, its interest, university's interest. It is very important to understand that if you have center of excellence, sitting and working within the one university, that this policy should apply to all involved. Second thing I would like to say that IP policy of university should be shared with the private sector partner once when you start working. But then you could also have agreement once when you start collaborating, which will essentially determine what will be the destiny of the intellectual property after your joint project. For example, you could decide with your partner from public sector, private sector to establish joint company. You could also say, okay, we have a patent jointly, but I will give you my rights. So you could commercialize private sector, without university involved. So all of these, there are different models, and this is topic by itself. But it's very important to understand that researchers who contribute with ideas, not those who actually do the groundwork, those are the people who should be entitled to be patent inventors, so in IP inventors. Not everybody, like technician or student doing some pipetting or something in the lab, should be owner of the patent. It's people who contribute to ideas. But the policies and right negotiations are advised. Second topic of commercialization of research is also a very huge topic, and I can send it to you if you send me your email address, some of the important information, but briefly, obviously, if you have some result in your, let's say, basic research type of approach, it needs to be tested in proof of concept. If you have a proof of concept that is showing you that you might have something that could be, developing technology, then there are steps, so-called technology readiness development, and I will share with you what are those steps before you could even commercialize. But it is very broad topic for me to answer in a couple sentences at this point.
Thank
But
you. Thank you very
you're
much.
welcome.
Thank you very much. Biruk, the floor is yours for your questions or comments.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, both presenters, for a very good presentation. So a couple of questions from my part. The first concerns the importance of national policy for private university partnership. The presenter was saying that there needs to be a very appropriate policy in place to help with concretizing the partnership between private partners and universities. I was wondering to know what appropriate policy means in general. Just a brief highlight will suffice. My second question, kind of comment, as rightly said during the presentation, the private sector in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, is quite nascent. We have small and medium enterprises comprising 70-75% of the private sector in Ethiopia. So our ACEs are having difficulty finding those private sector partners. So in situations like this, what do you make by way of recommendation? How can ACEs or any university for that matter go out looking for private sector where the private sector is quite in its initial stage of development? Those are my two questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You just go ahead and respond, Danica, please.
Yes. Regarding the policy, first of all, every country should have appropriate intellectual property policy, and I think most of the African countries do have. Your countries are member of WIPO, World International the organization, and then also there is ARIPO, which is also African organization where, I would say up to maybe 20-25 countries in Africa have joined ARIPO, which is essentially African version of World Intellectual Property Organization, helping countries to commercialize research and helping countries to protect the IP. Regarding the second policy, obviously the law on education and science should recognize this as important because most of the university policies would be linked to that particular law. Then also policies that come out from the Ministry of Economy that are tackling your innovation related activities are also important. So that, to summarize, every country should have what I would call a right policy mix, trying to allow universities and centers of excellence to have right policies in place at the national level so they can develop from the blue sky research to regular research, basic research up to apply and then to commercialization level. So these are two ministries which are very relevant, and of course ministry that is in charge of IP. So that's what I wanted to. And then regarding you also had a second question. If you could please repeat your second question.
Yeah, my second question relates to the current situation in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, where we have a majority of our private sectors coming from small, medium, and micro enterprises. So our centers are having difficulty. And there are sectors like the railway where private partners are literally not there because it's a state-driven type of sector. So I know it is quite difficult for the centers, but what way out is there, if any, for centers like this, and in a situation of a country having a majority of the enterprises in the small, medium, and micro enterprise sector? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I know it's very difficult for any university, wherever you are. Even here in Europe, people have struggled how to promote their center's activity and how to find the right partners. As I said, if you remember, I suggested you should put global glasses, not only to collaborate in Africa, but also to collaborate with the private sector and or interested partners abroad. So it would be very important to develop appropriate promotion strategy for your center's expertise. Use your partners that you have, international colleagues that you collaborate with, attend some conferences and promote your center, globally, essentially, if you could. Sometimes it is difficult, but obviously this is the only way out, because if you have a good technology developing in your center, I'm sure it will be recognized wherever, people will learn about it. So examples of this guy, Mate Rimac, Croatia is a small country, 4 million people, that's less than the size of Nairobi. He started as from nowhere, and now he's like a global splash because he had the right vision, but in the same time he attended events where he could promote his ideas. And sometimes it's difficult these days with the COVID-19, but obviously there are venues that you could use. Research, newspaper article can be something that could be helpful. So there are different ways and means how one can promote itself and results. I hope I.
Thank you so much. You have answered it.
Thank you very much, Biruk and Danica, for responding very well with the question. Now we have the last question from Professor Ghulam. Professor Ghulam, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I would like as well to thank Danica and the other presentations for this very, very interesting presentation. And I wanted to follow up with the last intervener, the Professor Biruk. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name very well. And this is to be realistic in Africa because of the industrial environment that we have. You cannot compare the industry in Africa with industry in Europe, industry in America, or industry in Southeast Asia. It is a burgeoning industry. It is an important industry. It needs development. And I think the whole approach of university industry linkages in Africa should be from the point of view, how can universities help those industry to build up capacity, to help them in the challenges that they're facing? Because they're all, as the first presentation on the first day, the second presentation on the first day was extremely interesting, where it showed that by far, and this is what Professor Biruk said as well, by far, not only in Ethiopia, but generally in sub-Saharan Africa, the industries, most of the industries in Africa are SMEs, really small and medium enterprises. And they are not looking for patents, which, they're not interested in patents, innovation, and all the rest of it. They have challenges to be solved. And they turn to universities to say, how are you going to solve our problems? How would you solve our challenges? And that's the attitude and the approach I feel universities should take. I know centers of excellence have to do excellent research and look for patenting and all the rest of it. But I think we should not forget this important aspect of university industrial linkages, where university must help out the industry to develop. And don't forget, we have to bear in mind rural areas. The bulk of the challenges of sustainable development in Africa is in the rural areas. And there can be very simple ways of approaching the rural area and find out what their challenges are. We did a couple of studies when I was in Ghana, and it's amazing what changes can be brought about very easily by simple innovation, but knowing the industry, understanding them, and to see how we do it. At the University of Mauritius, we never set up a formal university industry linkage unit. What we set up initially was a consultancy and contract research unit, where basically we encourage industry to come to us. What are your problems? How can we solve them? Not from a huge research point of view, but simply to help you out in what you can achieve. And once you build up those linkages, the rest can grow from there. So I would say, please be careful and look at industry. And in Africa, all the big names, all the big industries do not have the R&D centers in Africa. It is up in the north. What they have in Africa are the offices, which are not interested in carrying out research because the research carried out in the north. So I think we need to be realistic. And Danica, I think, is aware of it. She proposed a very interesting slide, different models of collaboration. And many of the models of collaboration that Africa should be interested in come from that slide. And that's where we should be looking at. Thank you. It is an intervention rather than a question. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was very good. Danica, everyone any follow-up remarks from Ghulam's remarks?
Yeah, I'm really glad Professor Ghulam made those comments, and I think they're very relevant. And I agree that one needs to absolutely take into account the level of development of the industry in Africa. One thing, there are some excellent examples when it comes, and I agree also for the big players who are operating out of Africa, they do not have R&D centers. However, I ended up getting some good examples of Nestle, for example, or some other big players who are collaborating with universities. When I visited the University of Ghana, they are supporting some research projects. So there are examples that one could, but I agree with Professor Ghulam that contract research, helping business advice should be like priorities to help the development of the private sector. And in the same time, try to find out international partners, if you could, through different ways and means.
May I have the opportunity to contribute?
Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. So I'll be speaker in the parallel session. And since not everybody will be there, I'll be dealing exactly with this question that was raised. So I come from Serbia. This is a country in Southeast Europe, and we were facing the same challenge as you are. There are no enough businesses around. It is easy for consultants from West Europe to tell you go and work with businesses, but you need to have them. And we were also thinking a lot about how to solve this issue. And then, although we are a center of excellence, although we are a research institute, we took it upon ourselves to also build the ecosystem of small and startup companies around us that will tomorrow serve as those who will take up our research results and commercialize them. So we are investing a lot of efforts into acceleration of small businesses, into training students, but also people who finished university in entrepreneurial skills and growing their own businesses. We are providing different programs for them. Even when we are able, we are providing financial support to cascade funding of European Union, and that actually works. So it's a big task, but if there is nobody else who is going to build your ecosystem apart from you. So I strongly encourage you to work in that direction as well.
Thank you very much. I believe we're going to continue this conversation when we break into our respective groups. Now, this marks the end of the first two presentations, and I would like now to invite you to go to breakaway sessions, parallel sessions. We have one experience from Center of Excellence in Agriculture, the other one in water and the industry, the other one on health sector. Agnes, can you guide how people will break into parallel sessions, please?
I think it's on the screen now, and people can join agriculture or water and industry or health. I just simply click on join.
I don't see on the screen.
It's not yet there.
It's not on the screen.
Well, it's on mine. Mostly.
Yeah, it's activated. The rooms are activated. So when you click on more at the bottom bar on your Zoom app, you can click on the more, and then the breakout rooms will be right there. So when you click on breakout rooms, you can join one of the three breakout rooms.
What do you mean more? Where is more located?
There are three dots in the corner, the right corner of your screen. There's a word more below those three dots.
I think it's different for those joining through the app and those joining through the browser. So I'm joining through the browser and I don't have that. I think.
Yeah, me neither.
Me neither. I only have the button leave on the right.
Same here, Agnes. Today that button is not there.
No, me neither.
Many technical issues today.
It's not there. really.
We'll just put you there then. We'll just.
Okay, take us there on your. You do it manually, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Right.
So how will you know that I want to go to this group?
That's the problem.
How we know that we're in the correct rooms?
Yeah, that's a challenge.
I think, Agnes, you can call out the room, have people raise their hand if they want to join that room, and then assign all the raised hands to that room, and then move to the next room and do the same.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't see it on my screen either. I saw it yesterday, but it's not on there today.
Yeah.
Okay. I will start with the agriculture. So with the help of Moshri and Saori, we can put in agriculture. So you can raise your hand if you would like to be in the agriculture breakout room.
Also, raising hands also works only if you have buttons.
No,
Buttons.
yeah, where's
See
the
raised hand? You have to physically raise the hand if you're on browser.
You should, yeah, I can see it on my iPad, but that you can have the raised hand option, but I don't see the breakout room. So that's funny. Yeah, if you don't have the raised hand symbol on your screen, put your camera on and raise your hand physically.
So much for digital technologies.
Yeah, I cannot get where to choose.
They are not created.
Yeah.
Howdy.
Jonathan, you want to go to agriculture? See, your hand is up.
Pardon?
Your hand is up for agriculture.
Yeah, agriculture and the one the presenter from Serbia.
Moshri,
Yes, I'm moving people.
okay, thank you.
I want to move to industry, energy, water.
We haven't gotten
Ambrose.
there yet. We're still doing the next one. Wait for the next round. Hold on just a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
They have to manually move people into the breakout room. So we're still on agriculture. Just give us a minute.
just to let you know that our breakout session will take around 50 minutes. So only 50 minutes, we should be back to the main room.
Jonathan, I'm just wondering how we are going into these breakout rooms. There is nothing on the screen to show where to go.
Yeah, we were taken there manually. So we are dealing with the first group of agriculture, water, agriculture. Yeah. Then the next group. So they will call and then you raise your hand and then they will take you to the room.
Asante and boss.
All right.
I think we can start on the health.
So you can put me in the health.
If you have the ability to put your hand up as an icon on your screen, put your hand up to be moved to health now, please.
Yeah.
If you don't have the icon, put your camera on and raise your hand physically.
I should be put to health.
Okay.
Anyone else for health?
I saw Professor Hangombe's hand up, but I don't know if he wanted to go to health or not because he turned his camera off. But when his camera was on, he had his hand up. Bernard Hangombe.
Okay.
It was sent there.
Okay.
Mm. So industry. So yeah, what's an industry now?
Water and industry.
Mm.
Yes, water and industry now, please.
Okay, I think we have everyone in the groups now. Agnes?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you see anyone except Roberta, Jane, Huma, and Anna in the main room?
I see Jen Abago. You see part of the World Bank.
Jane
Lauren,
which room would you like to go to? Jane?
Hello? Can you please join us to the industry and water room?
you are
Creates,
sorry?
Creates and Wise Futures Center.
Okay, I did it.
Is there anyone else here in the main room that wishes to be moved to a breakout room?
Yes, I want to go to water and energy.
Okay, Ambrose needs to be moved to water, please.
I already see him in water and industry, so we sent you. I think. Let me
He's
try
logged on
again.
twice. Okay, thanks, Mashri. Anna, where do you want to go?
It could be water and industry if there is not too many people.
Okay, they can move you. No problem.
Thank you.
Agnes, can you send Anna into water?
Yeah, I just did.
Oh, Mashri, you're so good. Thank you.
Trying.
I know it's impossible. I'm amazed you're doing it. Is there anybody else who wishes to be moved to a breakout room?
Okay, so mostly I'd say they go to health or
Yeah.
Health. Okay.
Professor Ambrose, I assigned you to the room, but you have to also I think click on the button that yes, join. Adama, would you like to go to a breakout room?
Professor Ayeko, you're back in the main session, in the main room. Do you want to go to any breakout room?
Yes, sorry, I had a problem with joining, so I had to look for more bundle. I want to go to agriculture.
Okay.
Yes.
Sisi Nakiboneka, you keep dropping in and out. Do you want to be in any group, in any breakouts? Sisi.